So I was given the homework for the homies for tomorrow night. I have to go on there. We had to do another draft because we did a draft live. That one wasn't good enough. We had to do another one, but he wanted us to do it with one trade, allowing us one trade. So I did one, and I want to tell you how good mine came out. I'm pretty high on this one. I'm going to refer to myself now tomorrow night as Dirt Tobin. I'm going to be the official head of scouting for the Cincinnati Bengals next season. I'm going to be Dirt Tobin.
I'm down with that.
At like 21, that. Justin, at pick 21. So that means my first trade my only trade was a trade back. Now, here's the reason why it throws a monkey wrench into things, because I don't think the Bengals will trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I did, and I'll tell you why I did. Because Shedeur Sanders was still on the board. So I assumed that they wanted to trade me to come up and get Shedeur Sanders at 17. And I was right. So I traded back to 21. I got, in return for that, pick 83. And I also swapped 193 for 185. So I was able to come up a little bit in the last run there, in our last pick. So tell me what you think of this one. Pick 21, I took Malachi Stark, safety, Georgia. Pick 49, defensive tackle, Michigan, Kenneth Grant. At pick 81, here's where it got a little dicey because I went on a limb thinking I could get somebody at pick 83 and 119 to fit our needs. I took DJ Giddens, running back, Kansas State, speedster. And at 83, that's at 81. At 83, I got Dylan Fairchild, offensive guard, Georgia. At pick 119, edge, the Ohio State University, Jack Sawyer. Pick 153, Golden Domer, Jack Kaiser, linebacker. At pick 185, Jack Nelson, offensive lineman, Wisconsin, who's played guard and tackle.
Nice utility lineman, yeah.
You got to give it up, man.
Yeah, that was a fantastic mock, bro. The first two rounds, I say that you wanted just by those two picks alone, personally, for me. But then you came back
immediately.
You got DJ Mickens the next round, and then you end up getting Jack Sawyer, a thoroughbred captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and you can't go wrong with that draft, in my opinion.
Got somebody that knows Al Golden real well at Jack Kaiser. I mean, I got a great, Dylan Fairchild, I think, is a really good guard for us. And I got guard tackle flexibility with the last pick. Now, unfortunately, we got to start talking about reality and what we think the Bengals will actually do.
Nobody.
All right. Hey, we want to thank you guys. Thank the live chat, Mary Edwards and Austin's Art. We appreciate you guys rocking with us every week. Got a good show going on for you. Before we get into it, if you could, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, rate and review if you have not. If you're listening to us on wherever you get your audio podcasts, whether that is Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. Make sure you rate and review us. Those 5 stars help out a lot. And share. Tell a friend to tell a friend about us. We're here. Fun show. Listen, it's kind of a lazy river show, as I alluded to it beforehand. If you guys have good comments or questions, and in the chat, we may fork off and go into those things. But it's the last one before the draft, man. It's the last one for the draft. Next time we talk, we'll be talking about who the Bengals drafted.
Yeah.
And I'll be live in South Carolina. How about that? So that'll be fun.
That's what's up. Yeah, that'll be a great one, man. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, well, I start golfing at 8:30 in the morning, before the draft. So if I have a little bit of a slurred speech or impediment or anything like that, I want to apologize ahead of time. It's brought to you by the great people at Bardstown, Kentucky. Thank you for your bourbon. I appreciate it. So let's get into what I hear a lot of people talking about, and I've heard a lot of different things over the past couple months about who we might pick at pick 17. We've been all over the board, so I want final answers. This is your final answer. I want to know who you think, not who you want, who you think the Bengals are going to take at 17. I think we've covered more of who we want. Who do we think the Bengals are going to take at 17 and why? Justin, I'll flip it over to you, my man. Go ahead.
Hey, you know what? I was going to actually flip it to Tim first because I know that I want y'all to give y'all answers first before I give mine.
Okay.
Justin's still thinking that he's taking that the Bengals are taking Mike Green. Come on, we all know it.
Lock the load.
Go ahead.
I plead the fifth.
All right, Tim, Go ahead. Let him have his glory.
I've been doing some research today, and I think mine is more of a I hope the Cincinnati Bengals take instead of a I know we're going to take. I just, I am to that point to where, are we going to get a Walter Nolan? Are we going to get a James Pierce Jr.? Are we going to get Malik, whatever his name is, out of Georgia? Whatever his name is, or Nick E. Are we going to go for an offensive lineman and everything? Personally, if I were the Cincinnati Bengals and we are looking for an edge rusher who's got quick moves, who's big, who's agile, I'm going with James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. That dude ran a 4.47 40. He's quick. I think he's like 6 foot. Oh, I forget what his stats are. 6'4". I think he's like 6'4", 240 pounds, 245 pounds, something like that. I know he's a little bit bigger than what we would want our edge to be for a 4-3 defense. But I don't know. It's this whole draft thing. It doesn't matter what the hell I think, because in the end, this is all our Christmas wish list and what we think the Bengals are going to do. We never know. The Cincinnati Bengals could end up drafting a damn running back in the first round. Who knows what they're going to do? Hopefully they're smart and they meet our needs of, edge and offensive linemen and, defensive tackles, corners. I know one thing that we're not going to do. We're not going to draft a quarterback. So, that's my take on it. I said,
why would we got Logan Woodside?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks I've told you guys I'm all over the place when it comes to this draft. My mantra is the mock draft is nothing but somebody's Christmas wish list. That's all it is. It's all it ever is. I'm so tired of these mock drafts. I'm over it. But anyways, that's my take. I'm going to say James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
Okay. So I think some of the guys at 17 that we're going to be looking at could be available are two of your guys' guys here. Pierce, it's Mike Green, it's those guys. Now, I don't see them taking that unless they decide to move away from a 4-3 and run a 3-4, which I don't think that's in the cards right now. So I don't think they're going to get a 250-pound or 260-pound, 240-pound, at least at 17 edge rusher. They may do it later in the draft and take a little bit of a chance. But I think what they'll do to me is I've been really analyzing. I'm listening to a lot of things and people that know people inside that building. and who they're saying. And but I've also been analyzing for a while now where the drop off is, right? And listen, the mock drafts we've been doing, I don't think that there's one chance in hell that I get a draft a difference maker at defensive tackle at 49. I don't think name one. I don't think anybody that's going to be in the top 5 defensive tackles are going to be left at 49. I just don't.
No.
So because of that, because I don't think that there's going to be a Kenneth Grant left, I don't think that there's going to be a the kid from Oregon or whatever. I think that they're going to take defensive tackle there because the drop off is quicker for defensive tackle than I think it is for the edge players that they like, the offensive guards that we absolutely need. So I think, and I think they can even get a good safety later. So I think because of those reasons, that's also one of the reasons why I love them to trade back here. But I think they take a defensive lineman, and Austin Zart said it earlier in the chat. I think they take Walter Nolan here from Ole Miss, and well, one of many colleges, but Ole Miss. And the reason why I think they take him is his ability to win pass rush, right? I think McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins played well last year, but I don't think they're twitch guys that get upfield. So who's that defensive lineman that you run in there with, in the interior with BJ Hill on 3rd and 12? And I think that's where Walter Nolan could have an instant impact for us, as well as he's not mush against the run either. So I think for what their needs are and where the drop off is, I got them taking Walter Nolan at 17. Justin, the suspense is killing me. Why are they taking Mike Green here?
I'm not saying that they're not going to take Mike Green. See, that's the assumption that you guys that I was going to say, and I didn't say that was going to be the case. That's who I would want the Bengals to take. But the question was not who would I want the Bengals to do.
Right.
You asked the question of what do you believe the Bengals are going to do? The Bengals, I believe, are going to screw this thing up. That's what I think. I think the Bengals may potentially either take a guard in Tyler Booker, which would be a huge mistake if they were at 17, or I think that they will take a defensive tackle in a rush scenario to where I think Walter Nolan might be off the board and they're going to take the next available one without realizing that there is greater defensive playmakers that's on the board that they could also take at 17. That's my belief. I think they're going to disappoint me here. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to be optimistic, but it's just really hard. I think that they also fall into the category of a defensive tackle too, Brandon. I'm with you on that. I think that they understand that the drop off is a little bit deep. Even edge rushing too. Like, there's no promise that you can get a pretty solid edge rusher in the second round too. I understand people like the name Jack Sawyer, but the production is not there really.
And he's
it's not elite. Round. Yeah, and he's not his. There's conversations about size and all that stuff to where there's a reason why he's not talked about as one of the main dogs that you can take in the top 50. Yeah, he's not a Trey replacement. He ain't even a
kid replacement.
He's a Sam Hubbard kind of replacement, and Sam Hubbard was a 3rd round pick. Okay.
Yep.
I think that the Bengals may also entertain a trade back scenario and get a guy like a Derek Harmon at that potential back end 2nd round spot. And if they do that, I will be okay with that. I like Derek Harmon. I think that he's a really good disruptor. I think that what they need is a disruptor. They don't have any of those. I'm not saying that they need to get sack production, but they need a disruptor, someone that can throw quarterbacks off their game, and then they can go off and then have their edge rushers just tee off from
what
there.
They expected to get when they signed Rankins.
Exactly. That's the direction I think that they're going to ultimately end up going in. I think that they understand there's a heavy emphasis that they got to build this defense. Usually the defensive line is the calling card of it for them. Me personally, y'all already know that I've stamped the flag on Mike Green because I just think that it'll be a killer lethal combo with him and Trey. But I also feel like that Jahad Campbell would just be that one fierce, guy that I believe that can help you change the whole defense. Like, he can be like our Roquan Smith, something we've never had since Vontaze Burfict. And even then, I really wasn't sold on him at that point. Jahai Campbell would be another direction I would go. But again, that's not the question. So I'm going to say that the Bengals entertain a trade back, just in the spirit of being different, because I do think Walter Nolan is a great pick for them if they were to go that direction. I think they go Derek Carmen.
All right, I like it. I'll give you a bonus one too, because not only do I think they're going to take Walter Nolan at pick 17, and by the way, if you said if not Walter Nolan, who, I would probably say Derek Carmen. So I'll give you 49. I think it's Tate Rutledge from Georgia.
I was going to say
they need the guard.
Sorry,
No, they need a guard, and I think the Bengals have a history of loving those guys in rounds 2 or 3 and stuff that have high integrity and captain. You're drafting a guy that's been at multiple schools at Walter Nolan. You're drafting if you go your route, you're drafting a guy that's had tackling issues. You're drafting somebody here with a high upside at 17, but also some questions. I think you go get a guy that is just going to be solid as can be and going to have the intangibles on their side. So I think they take Rutledge at 49.
And have no choice but to go Rutledge if that's the case in the second round. Rutledge has been getting mocked so much. His name is out there so much as one of the premier guards in this draft, to the point I believe he's going to go early second round pick. So if the Bengals have the opportunity to take him at pick 49, and this is assuming that guys like Xavier Watts is already off the board, because we know that's another guy that is constantly mocked to the Bengals that fans want. That's like the fan persona. Tate Rutledge would be the ideal spot. I do not think he slides to the third round, because I think that his name carries enough weight at guard at one of the premier positions that it's just not enough depth in this draft. There's just not enough good guard play in this draft. There's up to maybe Dylan Fairchild, but that's it. And Austin, I know you talked about can't leave out Xavier Watts. My assumption is Xavier Watts going to be off the board by the time pick 49 comes around. Could we be surprised that he might be there? True. But again, his name has carried so much weight to the point I'm not even going to be surprised if Xavier Watts goes in the first round, like the back end of the first round at this point. But I don't
think Xavier Watts can go in the first round.
No, he's not. We know that he's not a first round. We know he's not a first round.
Do you not see him moving up though, Tim?
But I can see a team pick him like the Eagles. I can see the Eagles picking him at pick 32.
As much as I watch Xavier Watts play at Notre Dame, he's a great ball player. He's a great he's a great safety. I think him and the cat out of Ohio State were like number 1 and number 2 safeties. That's my own personal opinion, but I know Nicky's higher, is ranked higher than him. But he could go. He could, you could be right. He could go to a, Baltimore Ravens or Eagles, maybe in the first round. But I think he's going to drop. I think he's going to drop to like maybe the, in the second round, the top 10 picks. I think he's gone. I think he's gone before we even have a chance to get him in the second round.
And Tim, not to interrupt you. But
no, you're good.
Not to interrupt you, Tim, but like that's exactly what I'm saying. Like we know he's mocked constantly to be a top 10 pick in the second round. That was just that. I mean, my point was just saying that if you're hoping one of those that think that Xavier Watts is going to be there at pick 49, you're out of your mind as Bengals fans. Like he's not going to be there. Okay. And I'm saying that his name has just exploded so much as far as like as a constant second round pick that that teams are going to send smoke screen signals because of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Eagles, who picks at pick 32, if they do not trade back, look, they already won the Super Bowl. They don't care. They can take Xavier Watts right there and be like, all right, I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? We've seen reaches like that before. Think of Alex Leatherwood with the Raiders. It hadn't panned out, but that's what I'm saying. I can see that happening, and I wouldn't be surprised. Do I think that he needs to go in the first round? Hell no. Nah. Like I love Xavier Watts, but he's an early second round talent, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and to address Austin Art's comment of, he's a little excited over there, and he doesn't know if Watt's going to be a Bengal or a Bird now. Everything that's been going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, anything's possible because you got to remember you guys got rid of Darius Slay. You also have Goddard still on the trade block. So what are the Eagles going to do? I don't know. But Xavier Watt, I'm a Golden Domer. I watched him play. He's a hell of a ball player. I'm not going to say he's better than how they have him ranked in the safeties. I don't think he's better than Nick E or Stark out of Georgia, rank wise. Real. What the hell is that? Realistic athletic ability or whatever the hell it is. The score.
Realistic athletic score. RAS.
Score.
Give me a
RAS.
RAS, cuz.
Yeah. I know I don't know how they calculate those, but if you watch that kid, on the field for the last couple of years with Notre Dame, he's a little bit worth more than that. But if the Bengals were to get their hands on him in the second round, I wouldn't be mad about it at all. So, that's just my opinion.
So we do think we think that Watt's stock is rising a little bit, but what I want to know from you guys is give me one of the guys in your mind or your eyes to keep an eye on that maybe isn't getting enough publicity. Not a Nicky. We hear him. We hear that he's rising, but somebody that might be rising that is underground a little bit more than one of the major guys that might rise up the board, whether that's, from undrafted into the fifth round or from the second round to the first. Justin, who do you have as a riser on your board that you think could get picked earlier than expected?
I'm going to go with two here. I'm going to be pretty brief with, but one of you already kind of hinted towards it in the cold open there with Kenneth Grant in the second round. The fact that it's a mock draft, it's obviously not that realistic, but Kenneth Grant is one of those guys to me. I think that Kenneth Grant is one of those, we talk about him as one of the D-tackle depth pieces that you can draft in the first round, but we're not giving him as nearly as much publications like we are the Derek Carmans, the Walter Nolans of the world. He doesn't nearly get as much of that like he should be getting. Like when I watch his tape, I cannot unsee him shedding double teams all the time and still making tackles. I just can't unsee that. This is not Chris Jenkins. This is not Mozzie Smith. Kenneth Grant is a different kind of guy. I compare it to he might be that one guy that you'll draft, nobody's going to think about it, and then 3 or 4 years later, he starts to burst onto the scene, and people are going to be like, oh, well, we could have drafted him. Just like Dexter Lawrence. Remember when the Bengals picked Jonah Williams in 2019? That was at pick 11. Dexter Lawrence was still on the board, and so was Christian Wilkins. Both of those guys flew off the board. Like Christian Wilkins 2 picks later, but Dexter Lawrence went to pick 17. How about that? I can see Dexter Lawrence was a kind of like a late bloomer in a sense. Like he was productive moderately, but he was also on a losing Giants team. Nobody really cared about him.
Then. Yeah.
He was normal Dexter. He was Dexter. That's what he was. He was Dexter with the nerd with the glass. He was Dexter's laboratory. And then, he blew up a little bit. And then now all of a sudden they coined the name Sexy Dexy and whatnot. But he's a fierce disruptor. He changes their defense. I can see Kenneth Grant potentially being that similar kind of mold to where he's not going to be sexy when you think about it when somebody drafts him until years later when he starts to blow up and now everybody talking about we should have drafted him. That's what I think. And then another guy that I'll bring up too, Donovan Ezeraku. I think that's another in between, like a sort of a tweener mode that he can rush from both ends. He's a little slimmer than you would like, but he can rush from both ends very well. He's somebody that if you were to entertain a trade back scenario and you still would like to draft an edge rusher and all of the top D tackles are off the board, I would not mind drafting him either, just to pair him alongside with what you currently have. Personally, I have him ranked higher on my board than James Pierce Jr. For some reason, I'm just not a fan of James Pierce Jr. and the character issues that I'm hearing about is different than Mike Green's character issues. His is just work ethic ability character issues, whereas Donovan Ezeraku has like this mean streak work ethic. And I want to say mean streak, but he has like this insane kind of like work ethic to where he's going to always put his best foot forward from what I'm grabbing. So I can see him rise up draft boards too.
I'll give you this analogy. I worked for years in the restaurant business. At one point in time, I owned multiple restaurants. And I had a chef that worked for me that said, man, he goes, I don't understand how you always hire guys that are such good line cooks. Every time I do, there's like they're late, they don't show up, And I said, here's the thing. Just always assume when somebody's working as a line cook that they have a drug problem, and look for signs of uppers, not downers. Mike Green, signs of uppers. You go to Pierce, signs of downers. I want the guy that's wired hot. That's who I want on my defense. I want it to have a little bit of an edge. Tim, tell me who you got rising up draft boards that you think they're going to get drafted next weekend ahead of schedule.
I'm going to say this kid sneaks into day 2. Maybe a couple years ago, you might have think he was maybe a 4 or 5 dayer. Everybody was like, who's this guy? Darren Porter out of Iowa State, cornerback. He's 6'3", 33-inch arms, ran a 4.3 40 at the combine. I know it's the underwear Olympics, but I'm going to give the kid where credit is due. Against
that's a good one. I like it.
I think I know a lot of people are like, Darren Porter who? I was doing some research today when I had some on my lunch break, and I was looking at different positions, because I know everybody's looking at defensive tackles, edge, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, all that stuff. And I was like, let me look at the corners. And this kid last year, he played 6 seasons in college football. 6 seasons. He's 24 years old, by the way. But I think he's going to climb up the rankings and get drafted in day 2. He was a wide receiver when he first started college football, and then he switched over to cornerback for Iowa State. He only played 7 games for Iowa State as a corner. He had 2 interceptions in 1 game against, I think it was like Iowa or some. I think it was Iowa. They ended up winning like 20-19 or whatever the hell it was. But the film that I've seen on this kid, he's got some good feet. He's got some good hands. He can read the pass defense really good. And I think he's going to end up sneaking into day 2, and nobody's going to expect it, because everybody has their eyes on all these big guys. So I'm going to say Darren Porter out of Iowa State.
All right. I like it. And I do like that we've kind of got guys at different levels going on right now, because I'm also looking at a guy who, going into this scenario, wasn't being talked at all, probably an undrafted free agent. Recently, I've heard, late round pick. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if this guy doesn't get into the 5th round, maybe depending on how things, if we get a run on edge, maybe even late 4th. I know it's a little high for this name, but I think David Walker is a guy that I want to look out for. Central Arkansas edge.
Oh, geez.
6'1", 263, high motor guy, 10.5 sacks, almost 70 tackles last year. He has a lot of the intangibles. When you're talking about a small school guy, he's still in that high 70, low 80 percentile as far as athleticism, depending on who you reach out to. He's got a decent bend, but he's got a high motor. And to Justin's point, when you start talking about true edge rushers, there's the people that the Bengals like, and the typical 285 to 290, that 300-pound like edge. They like a bigger edge. Those guys, there's more of them. I think they're going to be in those later rounds. But when you start looking for a guy, you want somebody in a 3-4 that's going to be able to play that outside edge at around 260, 265. I think this guy could sneak up some boards, because some of those options right now are numbered when you get in the later rounds.
Right. Yeah. That's a good pick.
So yeah, I wanted to be a little incognito with it.
Yeah,
bushes, jump out.
And that's what I was looking at too. I was like, I'm not going to pull
Walker.
one of, like some big name that everybody's talking about, or possible so-and-sos. I was like, you know what? Let me find somebody that nobody's talking about. Let's get his, let me look up some stats. Let me look up his measurables. Let me look up some film on him. And out of Iowa State, Iowa State. I can't even remember a good NFL pro out of Iowa State. I think there was a running back out of
Brock
Iowa
Purdy?
State. Huh?
Brock
Oh,
Purdy.
did Brock
last pick
Purdy
of the
play
draft.
for Iowa State? Yeah, I didn't even know
Wow.
he went to Iowa State. But
And on that
figure I'll
note,
find somebody else.
what a great time to go to break and let Tim think about what he's done. We'll hear from our sponsors as we take this break. If you've not already, please like, share, subscribe, rate, review. Now's your time to do so if you're listening to us on podcasts. We'll talk to you after these messages. And we are back at Running Through the Jungle. We talked about last who we thought was going to rise up these boards as Tim cleans off his camera for those of you watching on YouTube. Very nice of you,
Sorry.
Tim. We
My
normally
bad.
do it before we get going, but it is whatever.
Hey, I'm outside.
I get it. There's a lot of bugs out there.
Pollen.
Pollen, all kinds of stuff. But listen, we talked about who is going to rise up the boards. Let's talk about who's going to fall. Maybe we'll see some big names here. Tim, I'll let you start this one off since Justin started the risers up. You tell me who's going to fall and why. And before we do that, we want to say thank you for tuning in. Quiet Father, we appreciate you rocking with us. Tim, who you got falling?
You know, I really hate to do this because I'm so tired of hearing his name every podcast I turn on. Cleveland Browns think they're going to draft him. Pittsburgh Steelers think they're going to draft him. They think he's going to go to the Saints. And I know some of you Bengals fans might hate me. Dennis, the quad father, might hate me, but I don't care. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to fall. I just, I'll give him credit where credit is due. He came out of was it Jacksonville A&M or whatever I forget what the college was, and came to Colorado, and
Jackson State, HBCU. Gotta get that right. Come on, man.
Sorry, I can't remember everything. I can only remember some of it. But I'll give him his flowers. He threw for over 4,000 yards. He had a pretty good season last year. But come on, man. Like, I don't understand why he's so hyped up. I just don't understand it. I know it's because it's because his last name is Sanders. But I just don't see him being a starting NFL quarterback. He didn't play in the SEC. He didn't play in the Big Ten. He played in the Big 12 for goodness sake. I just don't see what the hype is, and I just think he's going to continuously to drop. I think he's going to. I think he's going to drop in the second round, or some team's going to reach. I don't know, but and then I saw this thing that they're retiring his number. He was 13 and he went 13-12 his college career in Colorado. He was 8th in Heisman Trophy voting. Come on. But anyways, that's my rant. But I just don't see Shedeur Sanders as a first round draft pick, and I just see him dropping. And I still don't understand the hype. And there's nothing against the kid. You know what? You deserve, he did what he needed to do while he was in college. He's going to be in the NFL draft. Congratulations. But I just don't see him being a first round pick. I don't see him being a starting NFL quarterback. Unfortunately, I don't. And you can love me or hate me for this. I really don't care. But I just don't see Sanders being a first day. Just don't.
All right, Justin. Who do you?
Okay, Tim.
Who do you? What's that?
I'll say, okay, Tim. So you got to stop ending your rants of I don't care who loves me or hates me for this pick because, bro, I think people truly, genuinely agree with what you're saying regarding Shedeur Sanders, bro. Like, the hype is gone way out of control for this guy. Like, don't get me wrong. I respect him. He's not my pick, obviously, because, again, in the spirit of being different, I am going to go a different direction. But I absolutely agree with you. I do believe he's going to.
Podcast. That's all it is. It's
watching. Well, it's more than that. It's more than that.
Look, I think that if you inject truth serum in the Steelers fans for real, they wouldn't want him drafted either. Especially when they've had the era of Big Ben. I understand that they want quarterback solidified, but I will lean more on Jackson Dart train than go Shador Sanders route for them personally. But like,
I'd go Moore.
I do agree with you. Like, I do think he's going to go first round. I do think that he probably goes to the Saints now that the situation with Derek Carr has flambéed to where it is now. But it is an overhype. It's one of those draft classes where it's an overhype for this entire class. Okay, so no one disagrees with you, Tim. And if anybody does, sorry, it is what it is, because that means they're gonna hate me too. Whatever, I don't care. But anyways, for my pick, and I'm gonna stick with first round prospects here too. I'm gonna stick with two guys. One of them, I'm not really all too whatever about. I don't want to see the Bengals pick him, but Mykel Williams is the first one. I don't like Mykel Williams for some reason. I think that a lot of people are starting to be turned off by his measurables because they believe that his measurables, even though he has the size, he just doesn't really have the explosive productivity that one might think. But yeah, he's always mocked as a top 10 pick in every single mock draft. But then now lately, it's just starting to seem like that he is falling down draft boards because of potential rise of guys like Mike Green, who is really better than him for real and has produced more. So that's one guy. The other guy, I'm just so sick and tired of seeing mock drafts from other people mocking this guy to the Bengals when there's better players on the board. And that's Shamar Stewart. It is the classic, I got muscles, I got all of this physical build, but yet you don't know you can't lift bench press 250 on a consistent basis. Shamar Stewart is a freak of nature, freak athlete when you look at him, but he has no production whatsoever. The sack productions, man, people keep on saying like, oh, well, he has some time. Like, he give him a little bit of time to develop. Bro, the Bengals ain't got time to wait, okay? We do not have time to wait. Joe Burrow Ben told you this. And if you do draft Shamar Stewart, when you got a Mike Green on the board, when you got a Jahad Campbell on the board, a Nicky Minwari on the board, Malachi Starks on the board, you are setting yourself up for miles of failure because literally you are drafting a guy that looks like he can be something when he's not. Could he prove me wrong? Absolutely. But I will lose my flipping mind because if I see another mock draft and then Shamar Stewart is the number one guy that's mocked to us, I just don't like it. And I think that he's sliding down draft boards for that very same reason.
Shamar Stewart is more of a project than Miles.
Too much of a project.
Too much of a project than Miles Murphy. And we have, we have greatness in our building, and we owe it to that man at quarterback, that man at wide receivers, both of them. We owe it to Trey Hendrickson to not get somebody that's going to be effective for us maybe in 3 or 4 years if we teach him how to play. Because when you put on the tape of Shamar Stewart, his instincts for football are horrific.
Terrible, man.
He's just
terrible.
A really good athlete.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, I'll name drop him because he's very common in the Bengals space, Bengals media space. His name is Joe Goodberry. Very, very well known for his work that he does with Bengals on the Brain. Yeah. And he's good. He's done cut-ups and films of these guys, and Shamar Stewart was one of them. So I tuned into that episode, and I was like, yikes, I do not want this guy. Please do not draft him, Bengals. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So Tim's upset everybody, went complete Unabomber on us.
It got cold out here.
But I could not agree more with you, Tim. Shador Sanders, I think they're talking about him at 2. They're talking about him at 3. There's getting some real traction now that they think the Giants are going to take him. He's going to be on the board when we draft.
Yeah.
Period, point blank. I have no problem saying that. And if he's not good, that means somebody in front of us took him when they shouldn't have. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability to be a starter in the NFL one day. I'll put it like this. I'm on Steel Curtain Network with Big G, and he says if Shador Sanders is still on the board, you tear it all up and you go get the quarterback. And Tate agreed with them. And he said, yeah, if you got the chance to get the second best quarterback available in the draft, you go get him. And I said, you don't. You don't go get someone because they're the best at their position.
Right.
You get them because they're the best player available. because they're the best player at need for you or whatever. Now, you can make that argument about the need, but you don't make the argument because he's the second best. If you want to do that, we can rewind it to when you guys had pitchforks running Kenny Pickett out of here after he was the first quarterback drafted in his draft. Like, it doesn't matter where you're drafted. Sometimes quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks, sometimes quarterback drafts have 4 Hall of Famers in them, and sometimes quarterback drafts have 0 starters in them. That's just the way it is. So I'm going Shedeur Sanders. I do think he will be a starter in the NFL. I think he will be good. I don't think he will be great. I got lambasted for comparing him to Sean King, who had a couple of really nice years down at Tampa. I think he's a good player, not a great player. It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with you guys. I agree with all of you. You know, it's frustrating when you hear a lot of big names that get a lot of hype that are overhyped at this point. And I think that's what that part was more about, the overhyping of a lot of these guys.
Correct.
Yeah.
And listen, when people started picking on him about, you know, him being too brash or whatever, and that's why his draft status should fall, I was like, time out. Why are we talking about prime time's kid being brash? We knew that.
Right.
We knew that when he was conceived. Like, let's not act like that was a surprise. The issues there are that he runs around. I don't know. There's too many clips of him trying to extend plays, run around, and then just turn around and just chuck it down the field. That's more than likely going to be a turnover in the NFL.
Oh, it's going to be a pick all day long.
A pick, a sack, a fumble. It's not going to end well. So he's got a learning curve there. Do I think he throws an accurate, catchable football when he's got a clean pocket? I do.
Yeah.
I do.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do, though. That ain't nothing new.
There's 64 of them in the NFL that do. Every backup throws a clean ball like that.
Yeah, and you know, I have respect for the kid. You know, he played well in Colorado. He did. He played well in Colorado. You know, was it
Colorado
well enough?
Also not the SEC, not the Big Ten.
Exactly. And that's one thing people don't seem to get in their heads is, you know, he was playing in the Big 12. Come on. You can't, you know, then they want to compare, then they want to say Milroe is not the way to go. Well, Milroe played in the SEC. He played under Nick Saban, and then he played for another offensive coordinator and coach after that.
I don't like Jalen Milroe neither.
Well, but I think,
at least he's got upside. He's got upside.
He does.
And
that's the thing is he's got an upside, and he played with future NFL talent. He played against future NFL talent every Saturday. So, you know, it is what it is.
Anyways, that's the thing. Like, look, if you're going to take that flyer in one of the later rounds on a guy like David Walker or a guy like that, fine. Go get somebody that played against lesser talent in the rounds 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't go get somebody that you need. 1 and 2 need to be impact players for your football, first and second round.
Exactly.
Get somebody that you've seen play against high quality competition. That's the reason why you see the Buckeyes, the Wolverines, the LSU Tigers, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Georgia Bulldog. You see a lot of their players pick rounds
Oklahoma,
1, 2, 3, because you know what you're getting when you put them in front of NFL ready players.
Yeah, and let's not all forget some of these teams that are thinking about taking a quarterback in round 1, a Shedeur Sanders, that is. You guys can't develop quarterbacks in the first place. So why are you going to try to get a rookie in the first round when you can't even develop one that you had a couple years ago or last year or whatever, you know? Anyways.
All right. So here's where it gets interesting to us. We're going to open the floor a little bit here, and that includes live chat. We'll open the floor over to you as well. But I want to open it to you guys. Random subject, a take, a question for us, whatever it might be. Let's just round robin it and open the floor. Justin, what do you got? You got a take or a question for us in the chat?
Let's see here. That's a good one. So nothing's popping up in the chat so far. Wait, okay. I'm gonna go to Austin's art one. He says, which teams do you think the not so good players, he said he'll be nice about them, should be drafted to? Very interesting question. So, again, which teams do you think the not so good players should be drafted to? Well, to easily explain
The
that
not
context of the
so good players.
so basically, like if the players are not all that good, they don't have the highest of draft stock. Um, which teams should they be drafted to? But the thing is, though, those teams usually fall to the teams that have better records because they're picking in the back end of the draft.
Very true.
So that's an easy layman's term way of saying it. But at the end of the day, it depends on. I mean, in a weird way, it does depend on name, image, and likeness of that player. That the real definition of NIL. Jack Sawyer is the one guy that comes to mind when I see this question. I like Jack Sawyer's name. I like what he meant to Ohio State as a captain. I would like to see him in stripes as a Bengal, but not as a leader of the Bengals defense right off the bat. Because I am done with the days of seeing the Bengals take these high character guys with low or moderate production, and we get mad that they could have taken so much better because they were scared off with character concerns or something, what else that may be. Everybody laughed about everybody, cried about the Jermaine Burton thing that we should never have taken him. But dude was very productive in college, okay? And I was okay with the Bengals taking him because in the preseason, we saw him explode. We saw him do things, and we were impressed with this kid. But we didn't know that there were more to it when we got to the regular season. And we thought he was going to do good after catching that long ball pass against the Chiefs. We was thinking like, oh man, wait till near the end of the season when we going on his run. Watch this kid become a factor. Because realistically, if he would have came and bursting onto the scene like we all thought he would have been, I guarantee you, maybe the Bengals do not retain T. Higgins at that point. Because then you would have had Andre Yoshivas, you would have had Jermaine Burton, and now you would have had Jamar Chase. You obviously were going to keep Jamar Chase, but maybe T. Higgins doesn't hits the market, and you get comp picks for him. So when I think of this question, I think of high quality character guys that just doesn't really have the greatest production. I think that's where this goes to. I think there's always going to be a place for high character guys, but I just don't know that should be the number one trait for picking them.
Yeah.
And
No.
they belong
later
to teams that need
rounds. Rounds, I'm good. Like I took Captain Jack at 119. That's a comfortable spot for me to
perfect.
take.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right.
But don't reach.
Said, right. That's what you said. Like it's a perfect spot for him. You've already got a couple of guys like impact day one guys. He's just a supplemental added bonus because he just happened to have been there.
And Jermaine Burton still on the active roster.
Yeah,
Tim, you got a take question for us?
Yeah,
chat?
I do. I'm gonna leave this open to all you guys,
Okay.
and even the chat. Chat wants to answer.
And women over there. Mary Evans, don't forget.
All you peoples. We'll just say that. All you peeps out there.
Our peoples.
So my question is besides Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, those cannot be your answer.
Okay.
Who do you think's going to make an impact for the Cincinnati? And hold on, wait a minute. And let's cross out Trey Hendrickson as well. So who is going to make an impact for the Cincinnati Bengals next year in 2025?
You want me to answer that question, or you want to go first, Brandon?
You can go ahead, Justin.
Chase Brown. He's the easy pick. I mean, there's obviously other options, but I think Chase Brown has shown you something. And I think that he is one of those guys that people are going to really understand who he really is going into this year. There are people that still don't know who our running back is in the league.
Yeah.
So
it's wild.
That's my answer.
I like it. I'm gonna. You know what? While Brandon's sitting there,
I got you.
No, go ahead then. All right, if you got it.
I was just trying to put together how I want to say it. All right, so I watched this guy up close and personal. I know what he's capable of doing. I don't think people understand when you're playing in the interior line what it does when you have a thumb injury and your grip isn't right and things aren't right. this guy stays healthy, I think one of the guys on our team is going to get some push in the middle of that line that people aren't counting on. Chris Jenkins is a bad man. I think he comes out his sophomore year and becomes the player we thought we were getting, and does that too, which kind of excites me about the idea to put him with the Walter Nolan, put him with and have those rotational pieces that can actually do that. So I'm going to go with Chris Jenkins.
I like it. I like it. We had an answer from Mary Edwards. Chase Brown is on fire. We've only seen him play half of the season, and that's such a tragedy. You know what's funny is and he still almost had over 1,000 yards, all-purpose yards in what, 9 games, whatever the hell it was. Someone was like, no, it was after week 9, wasn't
980 rushing yards in 9.5 games or something like that.
It was well over 1,000 all-purpose. I think he had 1,300 all-purpose yards. I think something like that.
And then Austin Art said Chase Brown could do it because he is the Flash. That's his nickname for him. But I'm gonna go a different route. So with the retirement of Sam Hubbard and the pending Miles Murphy, he's looking fit. But the 1-year signing with Joseph Asai, I'm going to say he's going to be our breakout guy in 2025. I think he's going to have, maybe 9 or 10 sacks for the year, and he's going to make an impact on that side of the defensive end.
If he gets double-digit sacks, it's a big breakthrough for us.
Right.
Let me ask you a bonus question on top of that. Do you think we sign him back after he does have that? Let's say he does have that. Do you think the Bengals re-sign him?
He's on a 1-year deal right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how old is he?
He's young.
25? No, I think the Cincinnati Bengals screw it up and he goes and plays for the Ravens or somebody.
You know who his agent is, right?
Who is it?
Dave Mulligata.
Oh, geez. Nope.
This is why I wanted to draft Mike Green, because I am not leaning on 1-year production potentially of a Joseph Asai when I know the Bengals ain't going to keep him anyway. Give me a reset of the clock of the 4-year contract with a new, fresh, more productive guy and line him up opposite of Trey Henderson. Joseph Asai can just ride the bench and come in on spot duty like he's been doing. So
I'm
like
not mad that they signed him for 1 year, but here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. If Joseph Osai is playing for us in 2026, that means Trey Hendrickson isn't.
Yeah.
How about
Sadly,
that?
I would have to agree with that.
So if he has a good enough year for them to re-sign him, they're not going to pay him the money that he's going to get unless Trey Hendrickson's not across from him.
Yep.
All right. Brandon, you got one more?
Yeah, I got a take, and then I want to hear your guys' reaction to this take. Here's my take. And Justin and I know we listen to a lot of similar guys, but we also listen to other people, other Bengals media, if you would, and not national media. I'm talking about Bengals media, podcasters and media and social media people and all kinds of stuff. I listen to a lot of them, and I keep hearing how bad the Bengals have screwed this up. And I keep hearing how bad things are. And I keep talking to them. And listen, do you want to go into a draft with this many needs? You don't. But sometimes you're going to have to. People are now complaining about who we spent money on. But would have, if we didn't spend the money on T, would have been the first people. I'll go back to the pitchfork reference with pitchforks screaming about not paying T. So, like, listen, I'm tired of it. Pick your poison. What do you want to do? So, my thing is this: open invitation. Anybody out there in Bengals media that wants to go one-on-one, you can come here. I'll go there. Whatever you want to do, and try to convince me why it's so bad and why I should be looking at things like it's dire straits and the Bengals are going to muck this all up and they're not changing anything. When I've seen things change and I see the NFLPA thing come in and what we get graded on, I see things change the following year. Like they're continuing to try and do it. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they don't deserve it anymore. And I'm okay with what they've done so far. Would I have liked him to have another piece or two? Sure, a veteran guard, but I still think they can get one even after the draft.
Yeah.
There's things that they can do that maybe they're not doing right this moment. They might have had talks already, and they might not be doing it because they might be looking at drafting a guard and a tackle guard hybrid. And if they do that, they don't want to already be strapped with a contract for somebody that's going to be guaranteed 2.5. Like what? I'm telling you, come on here and let's debate it. I'll come there and we can debate it. The team lost 7 out of their 8 games by 1 score or less.
Mm-hmm.
Stop acting like they need to tear the whole damn building down and rebuild it. The foundation's fine. Everything, like all the walls are good, straight, and in order. The doors are open and closing fine. We need a coat of paint. We need a little bit more furniture. But the building's in good shape. Like let's calm down. So that's my thing. And I'm interested to see what you guys think about it. And I don't think anybody will hit me up. I know some of you guys know some of these guys. Feel free to share it because I'm going to clip this and send it everywhere I can.
Let's do it. Tim, do you want to give your thoughts on Brandon's post first, or you want me to go?
Sure. I'll do it real quick. I ain't got much to say about it. I agree with you 110%. I'm tired of the media or other podcasters or, anybody moving the goalposts. They're always ready. They're just ready to bash the Cincinnati Bengals. They're just ready to bash us. They were getting ready to bash us if we didn't re-sign T. Higgins and get Jamar Chase's deal done. We got it done. Come on. We got it done. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are with us for the next 4 years. We got Joe Burrow until 2029. Actually, I think we got all 3 of them until 2029, don't we?
I think so.
I mean, it's a 4-year deal, yeah. So
I think it's 2029. But anyways, we got all 3 of them for till 2029. Stop moving the goalpost. Just because you want to just bash the Cincinnati Bengals over and over and over again. Yeah, then there's some people that say, "Oh, you guys draft in the top 10 every year." We don't draft. You know what? Last time we drafted in the top 10 was in 2021 when we got Jamar freaking Chase. Come on, stop moving the goalpost. It's getting so old where, you know what? Maybe you need to phone a friend and get better material or something because it's just getting old. And I agree with you, Brandon. Like I said, 110%. It's just getting old.
So let's ask this question. In 2025, are they doing more to try to be relevant and win than they did in 2015?
I would agree.
I mean, they're spending more close to the cap.
Yeah.
They're guaranteeing more money. Do I want to see them continue to evolve? Do I think we need more people in scouting? Do I think we need more people in player development? Yes and yes.
Give me a call. Cincinnati Bengals front office. I'm available. Hey, you need a scout. You need to send me somewhere.
Tobin, listen, not only with my background, obviously great at drafting, not only at that and analyzing talent, but I also am an ex-restaurateur and chef. And I know you got bad NFLPA grade in that too. I could solve a couple problems for you. Give me a call. Katie. I'm here. Yeah. Elizabeth, whoever.
Let me give my takes on your thoughts, Brandon, because I do understand the devil's advocate approach, and I have taken that approach before here. So I'll frame it at this first, and then I'll kind of go down the order. I believe this is where it starts. Most Bengals fans that witnessed the entirety of Andy Dalton, AJ Green era, it was roughly through our young adults for the most of us, growing into fully grown adults. That was the main era that we witnessed from start to finish. Now, we obviously talk about Carson Palmer and all that stuff, but the Andy Dalton, AJ Green was so much more immediate and recent to the point that we look at those 2011 to 2015 Bengals teams and we thought, oh, damn, if Joe Burrow had that team, we would have won the Super Bowl. That's what a lot of the fans are saying on Twitter, on social media, wherever, that they say that. For the most part, you'll be right. If you do put Joe Burrow on that 2015 Bengals team, that team does probably go to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. However, I will say this. I see your 2015 Bengals, and I'll raise you with the 2022 Bengals. The Bengals in 2022 is the best team of all time, in my opinion. That team was better than the season before when they went to the Super Bowl in 21, okay? They were beating teams like crazy. They were one of the truest teams that can knock off anybody like the Bills, the Chiefs, the 49ers. You name it, we could beat them. Okay. That was that team. So that tells you that the Bengals had to evolve their approach. It started when they made the decision against popular opinion to draft Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell. You remember what the conversation was Burrow got hurt, and now you need to protect him. And I think everybody's been operating in this fearmonger-based stratosphere ever since. And now it just seems like that it is bled into every single draft. Like every single draft, it can be 20-30. And every single Bengals fan is probably going to say, well, we still need to protect Joe Burrow. Let's mock a center or let's mock a guard. Well, guess what? Remember when we did that in 2018 and drafted Billy Price? How did that work out? You know what I mean? So I think that it comes from that place that everybody wants everything to be so perfect for Joe Burrow, when the reality is that every quarterback does not walk into a perfect situation. Yes, I get it. We like to point to Mahomes. But Mahomes for the last 2 seasons has not had a perfect situation at all, period. Okay? And he still had to make do. The Bills did this past year trade away Stephon Diggs and a boatload of guys they had to cut and move on from defense. And it almost seemed like they had to do a soft mini rebuild. Josh Allen still goes out there and performs and maybe not the greatest numbers, but he still goes out there and win an MVP. Lamar's had to go through this. Joe at some point has to go through where you don't have as much. So I am also looking at myself in the mirror when I say these things, because I was on here too, bumming out about free agency. We were very underwhelming. I didn't like it, but I had to understand, like, every year you don't have to spend to the damn dollar, every single dollar, to get free agency. You don't have to be super active all the time. You got 6 picks this draft, but you know what I saw it a couple of years ago? The Browns make the playoffs, and they only had 3 picks going in that draft leading up to that season. So if they can do that, we should be able to do it too. And we're a better run organization historically and right now than they are. So I don't want to hear this nonsense either. So now I want to combat a couple of things. So the first one is the slow starts to the season. That's what most people are going to gear towards. But I'll flip it and be like, okay, what if the Bengals do get out into an 8-0 start and then they tail off at the end? Then guess what? And you miss the playoffs. Then all of a sudden that fast start didn't matter, huh? It's about sustainability. Sustain and get hot at the right time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So I can combat that with easy. Now, I understand that you said we finished 9-8. But the new 9-8 is really turning into the new 8-8. For some reason, fans are just not really appreciative of it. I also look at it as, look, the last 5 games of the season, most of those were against teams that was lesser opponents. You had couple of good quality wins, like at Pittsburgh on the road at night on the Sunday night game. That was a beautiful win in their stadium, which that doesn't happen to the Bengals. They never traditionally won a road primetime AFC North game until that week. And then the week before that, you win that Saturday thriller in overtime against the Broncos. So you had a couple of cool quality wins, but for the most part, you had opportunities to win other games against better opponents, and you kind of squandered it. So I think that plays a part in it too. And then, like I said, I already mentioned the mediocre offseason, but also the number one thing is that we need to see evolve and change is that coaching has to evolve. This is it for Zach Taylor, in my opinion. You missed the playoffs, you're out the door. Yes, I know there's going to be fans that's going to be like, yeah, the front office, though, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Okay, but they did a lot for him. And at this point, Joe can't keep carrying him too, because I get it, the defense was bad, but there were times where the offense failed Joe Burrow too. Joe Burrow did what he could, but those play calls were just absolutely just barbaric. Now, that quarterback series, pay attention to that. That's coming out in July. And that will kind of open the hood to a little bit more, something that we haven't heard. That game against the Raiders when he threw for 5 touchdowns should have been 6, and he was mad on the sidelines. Then against the Titans when he cooked them, and then he was talking about we're 6 and F and 8. This is effing embarrassing. Saying that to Zach Taylor, you're going to get a bird's eye. You're going to actually get a true view of what really went down, because it's like, dog, I don't care about these 2-3 point wins, bro. We better than this, and yet we ain't playing like it. And they're not coaching like it either. So that's what I'm saying. Coaching just got to evolve, man. I know that was a little bit long-winded as I go through that, but I know that you wanted to hear like a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, I think that's what a lot of people that's going to argue against what you're saying. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we got to understand that patience is a virtue. What's happening right now is not 2 years from now.
And we're going to have setbacks.
Absolutely.
You can't. Every NFL franchise has setbacks. It's about adjusting, learning,
Sure.
overcoming, and advancing. And I've giving the benefit of the doubt. I feel like they've done that so far. They've done some things I didn't expect them to, in a good way. So
Yeah.
I'll let it do. And here's a fun fact, a little tidbit. The Unofficial Bengals channel podcast out there, Frank LaPlaca, not one of the guys I'm referencing here. I've actually referred to him as butterflies and rainbows and sunshine and flowers. He's very much an upbeat guy, but he did a very good draft analysis over the last 5 years. And I highly suggest you go listen to the podcast. He goes in depth from every single one of our draft picks, whether they've been starters, whether they've been contributors, whether they've been stars, whether they're no longer with the team or not. And he did it based off of, I think it was PFF, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I'm going to double check it, but it was one of the major publications graded, the last who's been best in the last 5 draft, last 5 years in the NFL draft. And the number one team in the league was the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I know that I've said I wish they put more in investment into, in scouting and all that kind of stuff. And it's not just the combine, it's also free agency and around the league and so on and so forth. And the reason why is because when we start having superstars, top wide receivers, top quarterbacks, top edge rushers, when we're paying guys 20, 30, 40, 55 million a season, you're allocated that you have to get these other ancillary picks correct and at the right price on your veteran deals as well. So that's the reason why I think it's very important to invest there, to protect the investment that you have already in your players.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
And every
End
team,
of rants.
I'm about to say, and every team goes through the exact same thing. I think that we all get sort of carried away with looking at popular moves that happen, like in the moment when it happens, and to see the same team that's attached to those popular moves, and we think that we need to be doing that. When the reality is that that's just probably their time. And it's really the only same 4 or 5 teams that really do the same moves over and over again. That's part of their identity as an organization. But that does not always mean that that needs to be equated to winning at a high level. We're talking about the Eagles that they just won a Super Bowl. Much respect to them. But the reality is that, dude, what if those first 2 corners would have busted in the NFL right off the bat? I'm talking Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Would have been a problem.
Bro, they would not. They would have been one and done out of the playoffs
They've gotten
again
their draft
for the
picks
second year in a
right,
row.
man. They have.
They just happen to have got it right. And it happened. That's what you got to do. So, end of rant 2.
All right. Tim, closing comments?
Not very much. Have a great weekend, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, gives a thumb up, 5 stars, all that stuff. We appreciate everybody. Just share us. Just keep sharing us out there. As much, as I can only share so much. I only have so many accounts, but if you guys can definitely share, and get us just to help us grow a little bit more. Yes, everybody have a happy Easter. And let's look forward to next week's draft and a Brandon Herriott wedding next weekend as well.
Look out. Just bangling around. What you got?
Well, first of all, Tim, you saying that like you just like, I'm tired. I just want to get off of here. That's what you sound like.
Yep.
When you
I'm cold, bro. It's cold.
Man,
it got cold out here.
He made a bad choice doing this outside. A
I
little
did.
early.
First of all,
just a little early,
this-
buddy. That's all.
The
Got
sun is
excited
still
to see
shining
the
out
sun.
there.
Got excited to see the sun and just
Yeah,
jumped
I
the gun a
know.
little early. I can't blame you for it.
Yeah, nah, for sure. It looked like you operating in a green screen room, like you moving, but nothing else moving in the background, like you see on those corny TV shows. That's exactly what it looks like right there.
Yeah, that's really my backyard.
Yeah, no closing thoughts from me. I've already ranted enough. I'm looking forward to the draft. If I'm disappointed, I'm just going to be disappointed. Whatever it is, what it is. But the draft is still always a fun time to watch.
Mary, Quadfather, Austin Zart, we appreciate you guys rocking with us in the live chat as always. Thank you so much. Next
Appreciate
week,
y'all.
we will not be a regular scheduled time. We will come on at some point in time during the draft, probably after the Steelers pick. And I don't know who all is going to jump on. I don't know who all is going to make a guest appearance with me live. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there's a lot of football folk going to be around me on Thursday as we're doing a little celebration for the NFL draft before I get buried this next weekend. So should be a fun one. We appreciate you. So keep an eye out for us going live during the end of the draft. And we will be on here talking about our picks, talking about the AFC North picks, and some things that caught us by surprise, because something always does. So until then, we appreciate you rocking with us, and check us out next week as we are running through the jungle.